So, welcome everyone to the Pilates World Book Club. I am so grateful to share this space with a community of teachers and movers who care deeply about the evolution of our field. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Wendy LeBlanc-Arbuckle about her new book, Moving Beyond Core, which invites us to rethink how we understand movement, learning, and embodiment in Pilates and beyond. So, Wendy, thank you so much for being here with us today. And if you can just let us know a little bit about your career pathway and then also perhaps what led you up to writing this book. And then we'd love to hear a little excerpt of it.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Well, first of all, I'm just really honored to be here with all of y'all. I'm so excited about the different conversations that we're having together, and how many teachers are super excited and also drawn to continue to stand on the shoulders of information that we've known for years that Pilates is great and that sort of thing. But how do we update our understanding of um, what's possible within a movement discipline? So that is really what kind of led my curiosity. I was introduced to Pilates. I actually discovered Pilates in the mid 80s when I met some dancers in New Orleans. I was raised in New Orleans. And but nobody was at that time, there were hardly any people teaching Pilates. So it was mostly the elders and a few teachers. Um, but I didn't really get to know what Pilates was until Michael and I, my husband and I, moved to Estes Park, and were part of a building an international holistic resort retreat conference center in Estes Park, which we did for 2 years. And and it was there that I was doing transformational personal growth work, and I went to a seminar and we were introducing ourselves, and all of a sudden Amy Alpers stood up and said, "My name is Amy Alpers, and my sisters and I just opened a Pilates center in Boulder." And I just went, bingo, okay, now I, now I really want to see what is Pilates, you know? So I was a yoga practitioner at the time, and running a health center. And we went to the Pilates center, and what was so interesting, I saw these apparatus, and I thought, why would I want to be on anything like that? I know how to be in my body. So I didn't do anything on the reformers or anything for at least 6 months. All I did was the mat work. And I loved it. And it was just amazing. And then one day a friend came up to me and she said, would you like to do you know, movement on this reformer, you know? And I said, okay, you know, wasn't expecting anything life shifting. How wrong was I? Sit down, I laid down on the reformer, and we started going out and doing footwork, and it was like my brain just went, what is going on? What is this? The springs. Wow. Wow. It's like what you don't know that you don't know, right? And it was so great. So it was after that. So I kind of studied, and then it was after that that Ramana came to who Amy and Rachel had worked with. She came to start a certification program for Amy and Rachel. This is before they taught the program. So she created the first one. And so I had an opportunity, and I did my training with her. And then, but that at that time, this is so interesting. This is really important, pivotal. I chose to pause my yoga practice because I wanted to understand what is Pilates. So I just did Pilates during that time. And then for the next couple of years, I just did Pilates. And about 4 years into my practice and into creating, and like I said, we closed the business in Estes Park, and Michael and I knew I was going to be opening a yoga and Pilates center once I finished the program. And Michael and I moved to Austin because a volunteer who had come to help with that project said, you know, there's no Pilates in Austin. So that was interesting. And I moved to Austin and opened the first Pilates center in Austin. And it was there that one day I thought, what is that feeling in my body? It was different than 20 years of yoga, but I didn't have words for it at the time. And it was there that I realized I was overstabilizing. So then I got to really look at my yoga practice. What was I doing in my yoga practice? And so this is what's interesting about what I wrote about in the book. I was seesawing between overstretching in yoga to overstabilizing in Pilates. And that was like an epiphany for me. It was like, what? Wow, what's in between those two? What's in between overdoing in either direction? And what really came out of it was somatic work, was awareness building, was being in the conversation of rather than doing more, what's just enough effort for the movement? This has become one of my guiding principles. What's just enough effort for the movement? And the other piece is what can I let go of that I don't need to be doing? This is another pivotal question because then that takes us out of the right wrong, takes us out of I should be doing this, what's wrong with me? And now I was in the place of curiosity and began to really, so then from working with Ramana, I went back up. I went to New York to Drago's, which is where she was teaching at a gym in New York, and did continuing education, did some intensives with her. But what was interesting is as I was doing that, I contacted Kathy Grant because I wanted to understand what did Kathy Grant get out of studying with Joseph Pilates. This is what Ramana was teaching. What is Kathy Grant teaching? I mean, they were just so amazingly different from one another, which was so interesting. Here's Ramana teaching like a ballerina, snapping her fingers. Everything was very choreographed, which is not the way Joseph Pilates taught, which is so interesting. You know, he was a boxer, right? And when you look at the archive films that Mary Bowen has, is when you really have to look at those. They're just great. And Mary sells a CD of her on her website that you can get, which is really fabulous. Archival Joseph Pilates teaching people, and you learn a lot because you really get to see how he taught the mat work. He did not teach the mat work the way Ramana taught it. So it's very interesting. And it's not a right wrong, once again, right? It's just a difference that we want to really kind of notice. We're just noticing differences. So Kathy, I would go in the same week, I'd work with Ramana and no ball, nothing, no pads, no towels, nothing extra was Pilates. Nothing else was Pilates other than the mat work and the apparatus. Then I go work with Kathy, and everything was possible. It's like she was like the props queen. She'd bring out soup cans and different springs and different pieces of fabric. And I mean, it was just amazing, the things that she'd bring out. I thought, this is so fascinating. Here are two people who study with Joseph Pilates. Sure enough, then I went and studied with Ron Fletcher and Mary Bowen and Lolita. And each one of them had their own unique way of speaking about and exploring what it was that Joseph Pilates taught them. So that for me was like a revelation. It really showed me that classical Pilates can have a form, certain things that we're studying, but there was a wide range that he taught outside of a particular body of work. And the way he taught that body of work was very unique to the way he taught it. And that contemporary Pilates can really be a variation on the theme. I'm going to send Sarah an article that I wrote in 2018, which is moving beyond classical. It's like moving beyond labels of classical and contemporary Pilates, because it'll give you more juice and really more exploration around looking at different, exercises that we study, and but also looking from what we're really talking about today, which is where are we coming from when we teach? Where are we coming from when we um, practice, when we do our own practice? Am I coming from seeing myself as an object to be trained and fixed, a machine, body of pieces and parts? Or am I coming from seeing myself as a deeply intelligent organism who knows how to self-heal, how to adapt and organize till the day I die? Wow. A living process. That's our biointelligent wisdom, and that is who we are. We are not a machine to be trained and fixed. So this is the piece. That's why I start the book with embryology. It's like, what in the world is she talking about? Embryology, you know? But why do I start with embryology? Well, I'm going to read you an excerpt because this is from a colleague, Bonnie Gintis. She's an osteopath and continuum teacher who's just brilliant. And but this is a quote from her. A miracle began at the moment that the sperm met the egg, and that miracle became you. That miracle hasn't ended yet. The mystery that propelled the growth and development of an embryo continues after birth and throughout life as the forces of adaptation and healing. The movement of embodiment is the vehicle for the expression of this life force. There is no spiritual path without a physical body in which to have it, and there is no physical existence without the presence of the mysterious, non-material life force, often referred to as spirit. Isn't that beautiful? So beautiful. So basically what we're talking about is, as Jaap van der Wal, another mentor, he's a brilliant MD embryologist. He has a course that you really must look at. It's called The Embryo in Us. And it's all about how the forces that form us, the way we form ourselves in the womb, are the same forces that allow us to be self-healing and adaptive till the day we die. And when we consider, let's just think about movement. I talk about this in chapter 1 in the cultivating our inner guide, which is really what embryology is all about. But when we first come in, let's just imagine here we are. We're moving into our mother's womb. We're coming in, we haven't formed our bodies yet. We're coming into the womb. And what do? We are a 3-part body of a back body, a front body. The back body, as we move into the womb, as we actually embed into our mother's womb, where we form our back and our nervous system. And our front body is the yolk sac. That's where we form the internal organs. And the middle body is called the meso, and that is what forms the fascia, the bones, the muscles, the kidneys, blood, all of this. So it's like this is all happening, and we are backing ourselves in the womb. So why is it so powerful to lie on our back? Because it's primordial, because it's how we find grounding. It's how a baby, when baby first comes out, when the baby's first born, lying on their back is so powerful. And then you notice the baby begins to look and reach, but it's coming from what's called yielding to gravity. It's coming from grounding. It's coming from that feeling of being, feeling the earth, feeling the floor. So that's why, as movement teachers or as clients, finding your grounding through your feet, finding your grounding through your back, finding your grounding through lying on a surface is so powerful, because it's there that allows us, the grounding allows us to reach. That's how babies learn. Babies learn through this feeling of grounding and feeling the ground, feeling that first sensation, and how that lets us move from the ground.
So I'm curious also, as your teaching evolved, so how we are all taught, um, we maybe it was innate through Joseph Pilates and other somatic movement modalities that being on the back was just a really comfortable, grounded place to be, and getting that biofeedback from the floor too to know where we are in space. Um, I'm curious how you were taught to teach by various instructors along your teaching pathway,
Mm.
and then how this learning of embryology maybe changed how you started to approach your teaching.
Yes, it's an excellent question. I was teaching from a very, very grounded perspective, as when I learned coming from yoga and going into Pilates. When I had that revelation of of what's the center, what is between overstretching and overstabilizing, what came up for me was, how do I meet myself? How do I meet myself, and how do I meet another person with more presence? And what I realized is that I needed to understand gravity. That I'd had body work, um, structural integration body work called the 10 series. I'd had that 10 series in the 70s. I had it in the 80s. And here I was beginning the 90s. I knew structurally how structural integration was not about fixing people, and it's not about massage. It's about growing human beings. That is what Ida Rolf says. That is her mission. Well, that was her mission, and that's that she speaks about, and these are all things that I really got deeper and deeper for me as I really studied more somatic developmental movement with Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, and then continuum with Emily Conrad, and then Aston patterning with Judith Aston, and the and then having and then eventually going back and actually becoming a structural integration practitioner, where we look at the way in which the limbs move through the girdles. See, and this so fed my evolving vision, which was, how do we actually access what Joseph Pilates is talking about, whole body movement, whole body health? How do we do that all the time, rather than just, okay, now I'm going to do this exercise, but what is it that is happening from a whole body perspective, that is that we're really standing on the shoulders of how he taught and what his vision was. Because what we know is, as Kathy Grant told me, when I worked with her, she said, I asked her about a picture that she had in her studio, which was of military guys standing in line with the perfect V and then, really rigid like this. And I said, where did the Pilates V come from? You know, and she said, well, really remember that Joseph Pilates taught the German military youth, and he used too much muscle many times, and we don't have to do that. And I thought, that's really interesting because the Pilates V it can be useful, but I find that many times people aren't able to get their heels together. So then what they do is they switch their knees differently, or they'll do something with their glutes, or they'll do something with their belly, or do something in order to try to fix something, to make something happen, rather than find more space, find more support, and maybe put a small ball between the heels. So then that both legs are functioning more efficiently with the inner and outer borders of the feet. So these are all interesting things to notice rather than this is how we do it. We have to only do it this way. And something's wrong with you if you can't do it that way, or maybe eventually you'll get it. But how do we meet a person where they are and actually look at your hand for a second and just notice rotating in and out. And let's just look at one. So we do one side. So let's say right hand. So we'll look at the right hand and notice how your thumb moves in and your thumb moves out. But notice how that action is not just happening at your hand and your wrist. That action is happening at your elbow. Because the two bones of the arm are rotating. The thumb, the radial bone is moving around the ulna, moving around it. But then what happens is you take that, keep your thumb up, and just reach out and let your eyes follow your hand as you inhale out, turn your thumb down and exhale in. And then inhale out and exhale in. And you may notice just doing that 3 times that each time your arm is finding a deeper connection through your shoulder girdle to what I'm calling your breathing spine. So actually your spine becomes more active with breath, with spiralic movement. You notice that your eyes are in relationship to the channels of your spine, and how that, if you're standing up, would go right into your left foot more, opposite hand to opposite foot. So these are all really fascinating ways to think about our bodies and how we move from a developmental perspective. As a baby, this is natural for a baby to they're moving, and the arm is reaching for a toy, or it's reaching for a parent, or it's reaching for food. And when you feel how you're not just reaching from your shoulder. Have a great story that I was working with a client many years ago, and she had a lot of fear. She had shoulder surgery, and she was rehabbing, and she's doing well, but she still had a lot of nervousness about how far her arm could move and this sort of thing. And she'd really restrict herself a lot. And we were doing something, and I suddenly, we walked through one place, and there were some balls up higher, and I gave her a ball, and I said, can you just put that right there? And it was just like this. And she just went, oh. And her arm just went boop, like that. And she looked at me and she went, how did I do that? And I said, you weren't thinking about it.
I love it. One of the quotes in your book that I love so much, and there's so much that I'm loving in there already. So
Mm.
again, I just received the book recently. I don't know why my camera is doing this blur thing, but
Thank you, Sarah.
I have many, many highlights already and scribbles
Mm.
in the margins. And so this one quote that what you're talking about is bringing up for me is when you said, I often ask myself, am I being right or am I being human? And
Ah,
I
that's,
think that
yeah,
that's one of the challenges sometimes that we all find as movement teachers, and particularly one client I'm thinking about right now that I'm working with, trying to pull them out of their shell. And they have I don't know whether it was them cultivating it, right, in society and their family and whatever teachers they had along the way, right? Um, this very rigid type of thinking of what even a movement environment should be like with the pounding
yeah,
music and whatnot. And then always trying to be correct and
yeah.
also having a challenging time receiving feedback, right? And so from the way that I am thinking as I'm teaching this person is trying knowing that there's a lot of defensiveness
Mm,
involved, right? And then how to bring him into that curiosity state and that understanding that
mm,
things do not have to be one way, but even just the dropping into the feeling of the body. So just kind of if you could continue on the path that you were just talking
mm,
about, and then maybe also weaving in how would you approach teaching someone to invite them into this type of thinking, but from
mm,
a, a real applicable view as a teacher for teachers like myself, and I have
mhm,
many teacher training students where they may learn and know all of the exercises and a lot of cueing and maybe a lot of anatomy, right? But then when we drop into teaching, our clients don't know the anatomy, even if we do. And then there's this psychological, spiritual, if you will, part of teaching that doesn't necessarily get taught that we cultivate throughout our teaching lives that you in my opinion have done this beautiful job at evolving into yourself and then putting it very succinctly in your book, so much
mm,
that I have read so far.
mm.
And how can you help translate that into us as teachers to
Well,
help?
it's a beautiful question. Thank you. I'll tell you a really a lovely story that I had with a client that builds on that, which is a lady was referred to me a number of years ago who had multiple surgeries, and she was really just very nervous about movement. And she came in and she was sitting across from me, and she just began to go through the litany of what was wrong. And I just looked at her and I said, "Excuse me, may I ask you a question?" And she said, "Oh, sure, you know." And I said, "How did you get here?" She said, "Well, I drove." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, and how did you get in the studio?" She said, "Well, I walked in." So I looked at her and I said, "So there's actually a lot working, isn't there?" And she went, "What?" I said, "Well, there's a lot going on in your body, but I said, there's a lot that's working beautifully. And that's what we're going to build on. And it's that way of, of being with movement that's gentle and that your body will tell us, your body's going to guide us." And she just went, "Wow, that sounds amazing." And it was amazing, you see? So um, it's a distinction that I call what's working and what's missing. Because usually we come from what's right and what's wrong. This is happening over here and this is not happening over here. And now we have to fix this. But when we really look at being assessing from a place of what's working, what's not working or what's missing begins to show up in very interesting ways that's looking for support. So for instance, someone has his shoulders, has something going on with the shoulders and a lot of tension in the shoulder. And so can you relax your shoulders? Can you do this? Can you do, well, I mean, what I like to inquire into is if I were the shoulders, what would I be asking? And any body part that is having difficulty is looking for support. If we think from that place, that shoulders, put your hands inside your thumb under your armpit, like this. And now lift your shoulders up. Inhale. Exhale, relax your shoulders and just feel how your shoulder girdle becomes a little more mobile. Do that again. Inhale, lift up. Exhale. So what you're doing is you're actually energizing your center gravity-based muscles. The gravity-based support that works with breath relaxes your shoulders naturally, so your shoulders begin to feel how grounding from below, centering from below, allows the shoulders to relax on a whole new level. Does that make sense? Which is very different than doing something to the shoulders. Make the shoulders drop, make them drop. See, it's like forcing something rather than giving something support.
Yeah, that's what I learned from Shelley Center, who's an Alexander instructor. She
Yeah,
spoke a lot about undoing versus doing.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that biointelligence piece of the tactile feedback, I think, really helps. Self-tactile feedback helps so much, and giving the body new movement experiences. I also think the way we speak, the language that we use, inviting people into experiences makes a big difference. And I love how you worked with that student, opening her eyes to what she can do, right, versus what she can't do. And um, I'm just thinking about that as the biointelligence within each of us. Again, it's that learning to trust that we're all so intelligent in our bodies. And I will share with my clients that, my mind, my brain does not connect to your nervous system. So as much as I have, been studying and practicing and teaching for over 20 years, and maybe have a lot more life experience as a mover my whole life, that they will know always more about their own body than my own. Um, and so, what I'm wondering as well, because I know we're both so on board with this, how can we help to integrate this into not just our own teaching, but into studio culture and perhaps even movement culture, the Pilates world, at large?
well, I think the big shift is to move from a skeletal relationship of the body as a bones and muscles focus to what is a fascial matrix. What is the fascial body that is our connective tissue body? Is everybody familiar with the connective tissue of fascia? Has everybody heard the term like that? Yeah. So remember that fascia is it's like when you look at a tendon or a ligament that connects with a muscle. That's how the fascial system has been viewed. It's been viewed as a part of something, and usually as a something you get rid of in order to look more deeply at the muscles and the bones. And what has been discovered, and that will take us into just an understanding of ourselves as pieces and parts, biomechanical pieces and parts, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, because I definitely teach from, looking at the psoas and looking at this and looking at that, and looking at individual, but it's incomplete, because the psoas only exists because an anatomist cut the body to find something called it the psoas. The body doesn't know muscles. The brain does not know muscles. The brain knows movement. That's what we know. So the fascial matrix body is connective tissue, but it's more than connective tissue. It's actually our original body. It is the body that is formed, that holds the cells that are, it's a living, responsive, liquid crystalline matrix that it's just a kind of a gel-like body that holds the cells of the muscles, the bones, the nervous system. So the fascial matrix is an immediate, this is what's really mind-blowing. It is an immediate knowing. It's a sensory knowing, which is different than the brain is. The brain is the last to know. The connected tissue body, your connected tissue body. Here's, for instance, so there's a car, or a truck coming at you. You're walking across the street and this car is careening down the street. Are you going to stand there and go, I should move right now? Or are you just going to kind of not think about it, and your body's just kind of like, boom, you're out of the way? Or a mosquito is flying to you, and before it hits your eye, do you have to think about closing your eye? No, you don't have to think about it. It just happens. So the nervous system of the fascial matrix is much faster than the central nervous system. It actually, the glial cells and astrocytes of the fascial matrix body coordinate with the central nervous system and help with wound healing and repair. So the fascial matrix body is our body that actually connects us to all of nature.
Can
It
you
is,
speak a little more about that, about how we do not exist separate from our environment?
yes. Well, right here is a chart that you'll find in the book, comparing and contrasting biomechanical and biointelligent approaches to movement. So, can you see those? Kind of hard for me to see. There are two cells right there. See, the cell on the right is like a separate, it's a closed system. See the cell on the left? It's got connection and vibration and movement happening from the nucleus through the cell wall to the body, right? Thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
To the body that then connects us to, how is it that we feel so comfortable with some people? It's like we just feel like you're just drawn to someone, or you're really comfortable in a situation. You feel the biorhythms just feel resonant, right? Because we are a vibratory system. We are so much more than we are not a closed system. We're not a closed individual body. We are a body that is in what I call core as relationship with gravity, ourselves, one another, and our living environment. Very different than core control of pull your belly in, pull your shoulders down. Once again, it's not right, wrong. It's a very different way of perceiving ourselves. It's a much more real body experience. It's our real body that becomes our ideal body. So this feeling, the connective, the living, responsive liquid crystal network carries energy and information throughout the whole body. And that also connects with the living world. We're part of the living world with one another and with the environment. We cannot breathe without the trees, right? We know this, but we don't think about it very often. You know, we don't have an environment that supports us. We don't have this separate way of being. So it's very interesting to actually see the just how we have a much deeper understanding of Joseph Pilates' genius. There's only so much that he knew back then. And what we've got now, we have new ways of being able to detect who we are and how we function and how breath is not a thing to do, but rather a beingness, a way of being with the way that I can self-calm, the way that I can respond to whatever my metabolic need is. That's a way to think about breath rather than the right way and the wrong way to breathe. Like what is right now when we're sitting? Do I need a really big breath right now? But how often do we say, take a big breath? Why? And the body's thinking, why would I want to do that? I'm only sitting. But then we're climbing. And then suddenly, wow, as you push down with one foot, lift up, then all of a sudden the breath goes to a deeper place. It goes to much bigger, right? Because we need that for metabolic need. So the more we are aware of breath being adaptive to whatever we're doing, that's what I write about. The breath is a healing bridge between matter and spirit is another chapter in the book, because it's so much more than a thing called inhale, exhale.
So I think one of the things that people often get hung up on is that I probably won't say it exactly as Joe wrote it, but he wrote something in Return to Life about how we must learn to breathe properly. And
Yeah.
so, and then I didn't ask Lolita this question. Maybe I should text her. um, did Joe teach people how to breathe properly? There's nothing that I have learned from any elders or read in his book where there's actually a description of how to breathe properly. And what you're saying resonates with me much more so. But were there any specific directions that were given to you by all of your, any of your amazing
No,
instructors?
no. And there were some teachers. Ramana taught inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, which became more of a, kind of a tradition in the discipline. But I actually asked I didn't get to ask Romana because at the time the question wasn't there, but I asked Kathy, I asked Lolita, I asked Mary Bowen, I asked Ron, did Joseph Pilates ever teach breath? He said no. All he taught was you go out the air to in the air,
Mhm.
So there wasn't any instruction on how to breathe. It was just, let yourself breathe normally, which is really great, you
It's a
know?
gift. Like
Yeah,
the gift that he didn't give us too many directions, I think.
that's
And
right.
also, it's, yeah, a common topic of conversations, or it has been throughout the years, for me when I'm in educational environments. So I'm curious also what your three core connections are.
Right, right. And the beauty of that is it's not a belief system. It's not something to memorize. It is a way of looking at how the lower body relates to the central body and the upper body. So it's pretty much simple like that. And it's a way of noticing, for instance, what happens when I just soften my knee and ankle. What is that all about? That is a profound action. We're so conditioned to look at big exercises, but we forget that it's the foundational pieces, it's the little things that we're doing that actually create the problems or the successes as we move and as movement becomes more complex. So that's why I spend time in the book on what is ankle softening, what is knee softening, not from a bending perspective, but from a softening and elastic recoil perspective. How does the biotensegrity body, which may be a new term for some people that who are here today, so I can give a little more information about biotensegrity. Um, Biotensegrity is, first of all, tensegrity. Tensegrity is the tensional. I'm going to just get something for a second. Has everybody seen this structure? This is called a tensegrity structure. And it's basically a spatial way of looking at organization. So the bones of the body, so there's every strut is connected to a cord, and the basic structure of the piece was designed by Buckminster Fuller, who was an incredible visionary thinker and designer. And that basically the design of the piece is based on sacred geometry, and it's based on the idea that when one part moves, everything moves. Everything is connected. See how I'm just moving the struts and everything else is moving in relationship to these. So a tensegrity structure would be something like, an example would be like a bridge that spans from one side to another. And like the Golden Gate Bridge would be a tensegrity structure that has tension and compression as guiding forces. The compressive forces are the struts, and the tensional forces are the soft tissue or the bands. And the tensional integrity is throughout the structure. So the difference between our body And the Golden Gate Bridge is that we are biological beings, whereas the Golden Gate Bridge is a building, is a structure. So it would be called a tensegrity structure, which is what this is. It's got the tension and compression built into it that helps it to stay in place, intact. We, on the other hand, are biological creatures, and but the other thing is that's interesting is that like a bridge can't change direction. It has to stay in that one, or a tent, let's say, is another tensegrity structure where you'd have all the stays down to the ground to keep the tension, right? The tensional integrity for the tent. But if you took one of those stays off, the tent would lose its integrity, right? It wouldn't be able to keep the same tensional integrity. We're different than that. We have the same integrity. Our bones and our fascia function like this, except we are omnidirectional because we're biological beings. So we're able to go from a handstand to a one handstand, to one hand, and we don't lose integrity. We can still be in that full force of the integrity of the movement where everything is still integrous. You see these guys in parkour and that jumping from one building to another like that, and they're in this elastic framework. Same thing we can feel in Pilates. We can feel that as we're moving, it can feel very elastic to us, how our legs are moving in relationship to our spine, how our arms are moving in relationship to the spine. That's a biotensegrity movement, which is another heightened layer of understanding about who we are and how we function, coming from that place of fascial matrix, of how our body is elastic and yet has a deep structure to it.
I'm wondering if maybe we, and I want to ask those of you present, I wonder if it would be of interest to you all to shift a little bit of the structure of our meeting today and move before we do the Q&A. Would you be interested in either, if there's any burning questions, feel free to pop them up now. But if not, would you be interested in having Wendy lead us through some breath, maybe some imagery and movement work, and then opening it up for questions? Yeah, I think that's a more,
I
natural
love
way.
that.
All right, let's do that, Wendy, if you're up for it.
Great, great. Yeah. So, does everybody have a wall that you can put your hands on? You have a wall next to you? Good. So go to the wall and just place your hands on the wall. You're standing next to the wall. Great. Beautiful. Yes. Good. So just notice right now what touching the wall feels like. Just notice that you're touching the wall. And what's interesting is the wall is also touching you. So we're not used to looking for feedback. This is something that we get with clients too. We're touching someone, but they're also in relationship to our touch. So just for a moment, soften your knees for just a second and just feel how your feet, be sure you're barefooted. Notice how your feet respond and how your hands respond. You just keep allowing your hands to open. Let your hands open, let your feet open. And as you soften your knees, you may notice that your feet feel like they're becoming more perceptive. They're awake because feet and hands, the whole body breathes. Cellular awareness is like profound for us. So you're just noticing if your feet open. Don't worry about it if it isn't like a big thing and all that. It all happens over time, and everybody gets just exactly what you need. It's fabulous. Now, from there, just bend your elbows slightly. Keep standing up and just bend your elbows slightly. And as you soften your elbows, notice how your hands want to spread. And then as you straighten your arm, let your shoulder blades relax. Feel how your hands, instead of coming from the front of your shoulder, feel how your shoulder blades can relax, almost like they feel like they're just, as you exhale, feel how the shoulder blades like glide on your ribs slightly. Just a little bit. So you're feeling this feeling of exhale that relaxes your shoulders as your arms extend. And don't worry about it, whether or not it's profound or whether you're feeling it, everything right and all that, because the beauty of this is you're gonna make it your own. That's what's powerful about our work together. Now we're gonna play with something, just gonna keep that, keep your hands on the wall and begin to take your hips away from your hands. So you're just reaching into the wall. Yeah, it's like you're going into a right angle with your hips in line with your hands. Hands are going toward the wall, hips are moving away from the wall. So you're bending forward and taking your hips back. It's like a downward dog using the wall. Yeah. So feel how you're opening up your armpits. Beautiful, y'all. That's great. Bring your feet a little forward so your feet aren't beyond, they're not behind your hips. They're like under your hips. You'll see where it works for you to, yeah. Now move your hips back, 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 so that you can take your head down between your arms and your hands are going to go lower on the wall, more hip height. So that that's it. Keep taking your hips back away from your hands. Yes. So feel how you're reaching through the wall. Reach through the wall and inhale, soften your knees. Feel your feet. Exhale as you straighten your legs. Don't tighten your knees. Just lift your hips away from your feet. So feel like your hips lift up as your feet release down as you're straightening your legs. Does that make sense? It's like you're playing with this feeling of how do your shoulder blades relax down your back? And how do you feel lift up the front of your spine as you straighten your legs? So it's a feeling of the back body and the front body meeting one another in the breath. Inhale, soften your knees. Exhale, and just feel your feet and lift your hips away from your feet as you straighten your legs. You can also keep your hands on the wall and keep your hip and lift your hips up without going forward. It's a hard one. Feel your hips go up as you go on the ball of your feet. Lift your hips up, 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 and keep your hips reaching back and up as you lower your heels. And it's an amazing feeling of opening up your whole body. Good job, y'all. That's it. Does anybody need any coaching? Is anybody is curious about something that you want to refine or? Yeah. Do you pronounce your name Mayan? Yes. Okay. Yeah. It's good?
Okay, hi.
Hi.
In Yoga Iyengar, she always teaches us to um, bring the muscles all above the knee to go up. Like not
Yeah.
walk the knee, but like bring it up. So when you say soften the knee, so is it like just passive?
Oh,
action,
very,
or you
very, very
guys?
good. Very good. So it's very similar. When you soften the knee on the inhale. As you exhale, you may feel a similar lift through the hamstring, through the front of the thigh, through the front of the pelvic floor, like that. So it can be similar to what you're speaking about. The softening is just happening as you allow the inhale. And this is just purely, we're just exploring something. It's not like you always inhale and soften your knees, but
Okay.
we're just exploring, a way of talking to our body. How do we communicate with our bodies? Because we're so used to telling our body what to do, you know? And what's the difference in asking, what does this feel like? Oh, what does it feel like when I do this? Oh, what do you notice about that? And what happens on the right side? What happens on the left side? And then suddenly the body's just going, oh, wow, wow, this is really powerful, because we're in a conversation with ourselves that can happen in a class too, can be just an inquiry that we're in. So yeah, you do it in a math class, you could do it in any, really. Does that make sense? Yes? Yeah. Does anybody else have something that you were curious about or that felt, you'd like to go deeper in or a little more? Um, yeah. So what was that like for you? What was that confusing? Was it interesting? Was it curious about? Just what was that like?
I just really enjoy ping-ponging around my attention,
Hmm.
that exploring. And I felt when I was initiating from my pelvis, thinking about my pelvis rising instead of thinking of straightening my knees.
Yes.
It softened up my back muscles and I felt more connection into my abdominals. So
Hmm.
that was just my experience during one of those moments.
That's beautiful, Sarah. So here's something that's really powerful. When we're in the womb, in the first 8 weeks, our arms are in this, are in a cross at first, in the first 8 weeks. And what happens is the arms externally rotate. We externally rotate and we reach and receive. You do a movement like this, reach out, and then we come back to cross the chest with the arms. The legs, on the other hand, initially hamstrings, so the legs have been here, they've been in this position, in the frog position. We come to standing in the womb in the first 8 weeks before we go back to growing as an embryo, as a fetus. But when the legs extend, what happens is the legs internally rotate. And the hamstrings were initially on the front of the thigh and they move to the back of the thigh, which is profound. Because then the feeling of gravity, of the lift of the front body, happens through the back of the leg to the front of the spine. So that's why down the back that I speak about, down the back and up the front, and this is all very clear in the book, and I can if anybody has any questions, please just write to me and I'd be glad to kind of go through with you whatever might be confusing. But down the back begins here. Put your hand at your manubrium, the top of your sternum, right here. This is where the only place where the shoulder girdle attaches to the midline, right here. So if this is how often I find myself, as much as I know this, I'll be looking at my phone and I'm here, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, why am I doing that? Everything gets crowded and crunched forward, right? Because our heads are like bowling balls. And when the head goes forward, ugh, everything has to hold that weight. So tight chest, very tight, shoulders crawling forward. This is all really, really important to notice what we're doing. That's why awareness is so important. So feeling that feeling of dropping here, we want to make sure that floats. How does the manubrium float? And when the manubrium floats, do this. Put your hand right here, one hand, and then lift your elbow and feel how your shoulder blade, or do it with both sides, because it'll, as you feel, well, this is even better. Feel the manubrium, feel your collarbones all the way out to your shoulder. Yeah. And now from your shoulder, lift your elbows. And notice when you lift your elbows, your shoulder blades go, oh, down the back. You see that? Releasing down the back. So the shoulder, down the back, support for your arms begins here. The float of the manubrium and the clavicles, the waterfall down the back. That's why I call it a waterfall. It's a feeling of glide, where your shoulder blades are gliding on your ribs as you exhale. And then the shoulder blades through the sit bone, tailbone, shoulder blade glide, sit bone, tailbone, into the tripod of your foot. So that feeling of the bottom of your foot is your ground. That's part of your ground, your grounding as you're sitting or standing. That's your down. That's our relationship with gravity. We are related to gravity, but mostly we're not aware of gravity's partner. And gravity's partner is ground reaction force. That is what lifts us up. So you notice that babies don't have to strain to lift their head or to reach their arm. They just feel the ground and reach. When we walk, we don't have to pull our stomachs in and really crunch ourselves up to walk along the ground, to walk naturally, right? We have rebound. We come off one foot onto the other foot. Come up to standing for a second and just feel as you're standing, stand up and just weight shift. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Feel your feet. Feel your feet. And then just notice as you feel your feet come off one foot onto the other foot, but you're not taking a big step. Just feel a little step. So that as you weight shift and walk, it is the back foot just comes forward when you weight shift into the front foot. That grounding gives your back leg uplift, that move. So I don't have to grab my hip flexors. I don't have to use my butt a lot. But now if you're climbing a hill or you're climbing stairs, that's where you recruit more muscle, right? That's your uplift. The uplift is the inner ankle. Coming from the inner ankle. See, the tripod down is grounding. The inner ankle lift through the inner thigh, through the hamstring to the front of the pelvic floor, along the front of the spine to the inner ear. Inner ear is vestibular awareness. That's your up. And once you find that inner ear, everything changes. Once you find grounding and inner ear lift, there's your effort with ease. Because the body knows that. It knows its relationship to gravity. and spatial orientation. Does that make sense? Yep. Great. Great. Trying to think of, there was something else. Let's see. Yeah, let's just look at something. Let's look at something familiar, like you're lying down on your back and you want to curl forward in the hundreds, right? You can pull your belly in, pull your shoulders down, and curl forward. Or you can press into your feet, knees are bent, press into your feet, and just feel how gravity and ground reaction force lifts your head and how the lift up from your feet gives you the grounding, gives you the reach of your arms. So let's look for a moment at just pumping the arm here in this direction. Just go up and down and notice how the pumping of the arm could either be from your shoulder or it can be from your shoulder blades and your sitting bones. Feel how the movement changes as you get deeper into your body. You see how here's my shoulders. There's my shoulder blades. And now there's my sit bones. And that just freed up my neck. Does that make sense? So it's like you're recruiting a deeper awareness in your body as you move your arms in something familiar. Very different. Right?
Oh, goodbye, Mayan. Thank you for coming.
Hi, so great. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so then you can see how what sparked the title for my book is how do we come from a deeper awareness of what core can be, right? So moving beyond a concept of concentration as a core control, to core coordination, core as relationship, which takes us into a perceptual way of being that is much more receptive and much more, I've got a deeper perceptual opening awareness about life. Tammy, did you have a question? Yeah, please.
So, Wendy, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
no.
thank you.
All right.
Yep.
All right. In your book, do you have like the information that I'm really specific? I'm really fascinated with the work with the infants. Is there, do you draw on that information in your book, or is it someplace else that I need to read? I'm just curious.
I definitely go into the developmental movement of infants, and also go into the how developmental movement occurs and how we take that into a foundation of movement for us. Yeah,
Okay.
but there'll be definitely things that you can read more
to support that. Okay. No,
Yeah.
I feel like a sponge absorbing all of your information.
Oh my gosh, I know the feeling.
I know.
I'm sponging away with you.
Well, and I just think it's fascinating where I can already see, because for those that you don't know me, I work with children in relation to movement. And it's just like all the stuff that Wendy's talking about, I can see myself applying on so many different levels with the children. So
Exactly.
anyways, yeah. So thank you.
Yeah. No. Thank you. Yeah. More to come.
One of the things for you all to know too, if you haven't been able to get a copy of the book, is that Wendy has these lovely QR codes throughout the book. So you get to enjoy more embodied experiences with her guiding you through movement as well. So it's just
Yeah.
so
Thank you.
wonderful.
Yeah. Thank
Wonderful
you
to have
very
it.
much. Yeah. And just had wonderful, wonderful models working with me, younger and older and just great people who we really had a lot of fun together and just learned a lot together. Yeah.
That's great. I would love to see more various bodies and different ages and whatnot in um, video
And it was
tutorials.
very interesting. Excuse me just 1 second because I just thought about it. Two of the people have never done Pilates. So I particularly wanted to bring in a couple of people who were brand new and just have them do things that they've not done before, to have it be more natural, to have it be just rather than somebody posing who's trying to do the best thing they can possibly do. But what is actually a a movement that is so foundational and yet simple, that you don't have to have loads and loads of experience to do it, and yet you get value by just doing it from a place of awareness. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think also your work could help a lot of people born into male bodies
Mm.
because of this exploration piece, and so much of the educators and the studios, the teachers, out there are very female dominant. And so I feel like this approach to learning movement and finding movement that feels good in your structure, right,
Mhm.
could help so many. So I would love to see that filter out more.
Absolutely. That's why I particularly chose two men
Mm.
too, just to ask them to explore certain things. So that was very valuable. Yeah.
Are there any other questions that are coming up from our audience today?
And
Um,
any question is valuable. Just I yeah. What are some of the things that is there anything out of what we've done that was interesting to you, or that you noticed something that you found interesting, or even that you'd like to refine, or um, you know, um, maybe clarify? Or does anybody have a request? A request to, discuss a particular thing? I'm just curious about that too, because that can
yeah.
be
I know I have some newer students in my Pilates mat teacher training that are here, and so
great.
we're just really still diving, moving through our Mat 1 manual. And
Beautiful.
so if there's questions that you have about exercises that you've just been learning, or any exercises that you maybe haven't learned from me, but you've tried them in classes, maybe it doesn't feel quite right in your body, or you're just curious about anything about it.
I would like to introduce an inquiry into a breath that I think everybody would find really interesting. Um, it's a breath that I call the counting breath, and I actually have been teaching it for over 20 years. It's one that I learned through a mentor who his name was Carl Stow, and he was able to work with people with emphysema. This is like back in the late 60s, 70s, and he was a voice teacher, and he began noticing how people were having difficulty with breathing and singing. And so he began to look at ways that he could have more ease for people. And one thing that he noticed, this is why I teach so much from breath, movement, and sound, that sounding is such an important way for our bodies to sense the rhythm of the tissue, you know, that just making a sound, just like even humming right now, just hum for a moment, just on the exhale, just and then allow your inhale through your nose, and then exhale and hum. And you may notice the resonance that you feel, but our bodies don't just feel resonance in one place, even though we may feel that in a particular place, our bodies feel it globally. And it's a beautiful way to actually move. This humming actually moves the oxygen that what you've brought into your body that's in your blood. It moves it from your blood to your tissues more efficiently. So there's a really, really valuable exploration around sounding. It goes like this. We're gonna count to 10. And if your first language is a different language, please feel free to count in your first language that you're comfortable. You want to be very comfortable with what you're doing. So the feeling is going to the end of your exhale, counting 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to whatever, because we don't have to think what number is next, just going 1 to 10. So we get out of our brain and we get into the body's intelligence by not having to think about what's next. So I'm going to go to the end of my exhale, counting 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to whatever, and then inhale through my nose and then exhale again. And what I'm feeling, this is something that as you play with it too, what I'm feeling is my elastic recoil, breath, ribs, all of the muscles, the deep abdominals naturally follow the pelvic diaphragm, the abdominals and the respiratory diaphragm naturally follow one another as the ribs move down. So there's this beautiful feeling of elasticity and rehydration of tissue and enervating the diaphragm. So when I started talking about Carl Stow, he would work with people with emphysema, and he was actually taken to the ward of a hospital where at the time there were emphysema patients who were just, they couldn't do anything with them. They couldn't, their diaphragms were atrophied and they couldn't inhale. Well, this was very personal for me because my father died of emphysema. And when I put my hands on him to breathe with him, I just couldn't believe his ribs, his low ribs were out like a bell. And so he couldn't exhale because the diaphragm couldn't go up and under, right? The ribs could not move. They were frozen in place. His chest was frozen. So if you can't exhale, you can't inhale. And so this is a way, this particular breath was a way that brilliantly that Carl discovered that innervates the phrenic nerve, the nerve that innervates the diaphragm. It stretches it as you exhale. And then you allow the inhale. So I'm going to do it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So play with that for a second. Feel it. Feel the counting 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and feel it like a rhythm, like a sing song. It's like you're singing it, so that your body doesn't. It's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a rhythmic feeling of just allowing. And you can whisper. You can whisper 1, 2, 3, 4. Because you will feel your body on the exhale going to that elastic place and sensing the rhythm of the movement. And it's so powerful. It's incredibly powerful.
So, Wendy, I was noticing as you were practicing that, feeling different places in your body. Are there any different places that you would recommend we, you know?
What I was doing, thank you for asking about that, Sarah. What I was doing is actually sensing the waterfall down the back, the widening of my clavicles. As I'm like, even right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm just letting myself go to the end of my exhale, and I'm feeling the movement of the waterfall down and the internal lift and out. So talking is like counting, it can be, but it's like that feeling of going to the end of the exhale and just feeling the power of breath, feeling how breath is rhythmic, and how just doing that as a practice. You can even play with this on the reformer. You can lie down on the reformer, and on the article that I'm going to send Sarah, that she'll send to you, I have one of the exercises that I talk about in here is the breath squat on the reformer. So you're counting in there. I think I just say hum because it's an article. I didn't want it to be too confusing for people, try to have too much information in there. So I think I just said humming out as you exhale, go all the way out humming, straighten your legs, stay there, finish your hum, inhale, soften your knees, bend your knees, exhale, and go out again humming. And it's a breath squat. And what it does is you're standing on both feet rather than in a particular position of your feet. You're just standing normally on the foot bar. And you're just getting this feeling of how your body can use rhythm, can use resistance, you can feel the receptors of your feet waking up and becoming very open and much more mobile, because you're really being with the power of breath. It's so much more than we're used to sensing.
Indeed. There's a great question in the comments, and I would love for you to answer it. And I also have some personal experience with humming and singing and how that profoundly helped me recover from illness. And
Beautiful.
so this question coming from Susan is, do you find that having control and practicing breathing improves overall fitness and endurance?
Enormously, Susan. Absolutely. That we were talking about a little bit earlier, but you're really pointing it out, that when we have our breath relate to or enhance the way that we move, there's a profound relationship there. So like in Pilates, inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. If we exhale and use, and not just breathe out with our mouth open, but small pursed lips, like Ron Fletcher taught, then the breath, see, here's like a breathing ball. The breath can be small, or it can be like a mouth breath, big. And mouth breathing is too much. We lose the balanced relationship between oxygen and carbon dioxide with mouth breathing. So that's why it's really important to regulate the breath through small apertures like the nose and a small mouth if you breathe through the mouth. But over time, what I'd recommend, Susan, is it's amazing to only breathe through the nose. To think of eating through our mouths and breathing through our nose. That's how babies eat through their mouths and breathe through their noses. And so that is the most efficient and it's the most functional way. But what happens is we have to it takes time. It takes time to develop the reset of being able to go quicker and still nasal breathe, because the body's it's got to continually self-regulate the relationship between oxygen and carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is not just a waste gas, that it acts like a hormone in the body. And that when we breathe through our noses, the breath in the lower lobes of the lungs is where the major oxygen and blood exchange takes place. And so that feeling of the proper balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide is what moves the oxygen from the blood into the tissues. And then we don't feel oxygen deprived, so we don't overbreathe, because it's really easy to just keep hypervigilance in place by overbreathing, or keep asthma in place. And that will change. I highly recommend you look at some of the videos of one of my mentors, Patrick McGowan, who teaches Buteyko and Oxygen Advantage, and he's a brilliant breath teacher. Patrick McGowan. Yeah.
Yeah, and just
thank you for the question.
Close by us too, we have Palo Alto is just next door to San Mateo, and James Nestor wrote a book. He's I believe, a professor there. At least he's done research there.
Yeah.
Do you remember
He
the name of the book?
actually interviewed a couple of my mentors.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's gathered a lot of information and put it in there as well.
Yes.
And so, yeah, with the breathing, for myself, I began singing 3 years ago, going to women's song circles. And it was something that I was always interested in doing, was just learning how to sing, simply to help me strengthen my diaphragm and get more connected to the nuances of it, so that I could more easily project my voice in large rooms, because I teach at a community college where I am often teaching in gyms and the acoustics are not great. And then when the air conditioning comes on, it's even more challenging, and the microphones don't always work. So, so that was my original intention. But then through learning how to sing, one of the things that we do often in the warm-ups is hum.
Yeah.
And so it helped me a lot through my long COVID recovery. And then also after that, getting bronchitis, which I had for over a year. And luckily, eventually, I got antibiotics, which is really what I needed to get rid of the bronchitis 100%. But along the way, my music mentor, my singing instructor, she recommended that I start humming in the bathtub, because of the vibrations in the water, that it would kind of like exponentially expand the amount of vibration in my body. And that definitely helped with all the different breathing practices I do, and certainly the humming.
Yeah. No, the humming is a profound a way to shift it's actually enhances nitric oxide, which deepens the body's ability to self-regulate. So it's yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with long COVID is a lot of damage to the central well, central and peripheral nervous system. Had challenges with both of those. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm fully recovered except for just a little tinnitus in my right ear still. But
Yeah, it's remarkable, you know, and I mean, I'm 79, I'm almost 80, and I can say that that what we're talking about is are practices that enable us to really restore ourselves. It's not about anti-aging. It's about being able to self-regulate, really being able to help ourselves, like you said, when we will have things happen, when we have problems, you know, when we contract something, you know, how do we help our bodies to self-regulate, to adapt to challenging circumstances, you know? And I think that's the biggest gift that we're really discussing is that many traditional cultures knew this. They knew this intuitively. They knew how to be part of nature, how to help have nature, you know, be a guide. And so much of what we need to learn is what is that? What is it to discover the brilliance of our bodies and how we thrive in community, how we need community to really thrive.
And that was the next thing that was just percolating in my mind. In this work that you do, and I've experienced some of it in my own work as well. Um, how do you see this work uh, changing changing people from the time they come in to begin working with you, to however long, you know, it takes them? Um, what kind of openings are you noticing in people, the feedback from them, um, beyond just the movement of learning how it affects the body and learning how to take care of their body themselves better? How is that impacting other parts of their lives, their communities, um, instructors that you've taught, whether it is a teacher training student of yours or maybe someone that you've come across in a continuing education workshop who's then reached back out to you and shared with you, you know, I'm curious where the ripple
Yeah,
going.
I would say that this work is transformational. It is a way of being with ourselves that transforms our relationship with ourselves and with our teaching in ways that are profound. This is the feedback that I get all the time. And whether I'm working with a client who I'm always looking for how can I empower this person to um, to see how amazing they are. And it really is it's a profound relationship. And what's really powerful is that we're both growing. It's collaborative rather than a top down. So that's something that is very present for me. And I have a year-long passing the torch mentoring program, and that is I can only tell you that the people that the feedback that I get from the program is that um, it, it it's just from being one way to being, you know, able to open the Pandora's box and how to be present with the genius of who you are and how you can be a space for people to discover their genius. And the thing is that it doesn't stop. It's not like, oh, now we're going to do this program and then you go on and do something else. It just continues. to open. And that's what blows people's minds, is because once we're in touch with the brilliance of who we are, it just is like being creative, right? It's like if you're a poet or if you're a painter or you're a musician, you don't just write something and then okay, that's over. It's there's a well that you're in touch with. I want to read something that it's reminding me of. This is one of my favorite poems. It's by Rumi, and it really speaks to exactly what we're talking about. There are two kinds of intelligence. One acquired as a child in school memorizes facts and concepts from books and from what the teacher says, collecting information from the traditional sciences as well as from the new sciences. With such intelligence, you rise in the world. You get ranked ahead or behind others in regard to your competence in retaining information. You stroll with this intelligence in and out of fields of knowledge, getting always more marks on your preserving tablets. There's another kind of tablet, one already completed and preserved inside you. A spring overflowing its spring box, a freshness in the center of the chest. This other intelligence does not turn yellow or stagnate. It's fluid. And it doesn't move from outside to inside through conduits of plumbing learning. This second knowing is a fountainhead from within you moving out. Isn't that beautiful? I love that so much because it's just the truth. It's who we are.
It gave me chills.
I know. I've read that 1,000 times, and every time it's fresh. Every time it's just wow. Because
So
we are a wow. We really are. We're amazing. And I'd say that's the thing that I hear more than anything from people, where we'll go through some movements, or we'll finish a session and they just kind of look at me and go, that was amazing. And I'll look at them and I'll say, why was it amazing? And I go, I don't know. And I said, because you're amazing.
yeah, indeed. So Wendy, I was curious. I saw in the book, I think it was in the book or somewhere, that there were some dates for the when you began teaching the passing the torch, and then it looked like there was an end date, and so I was feeling a little disappointed, but also
Oh, no,
understanding of
no,
that,
no. I've been teaching the passing the torch for 16 years.
and it's
And
still continuing.
yes, and Miss Tammy, who is here with us, I'm absolutely so honored, is going to be with us this year.
Mm.
Yep. But
Can you tell
there are
us?
only 6 teachers. There's only 6 teachers a year because I keep it small and really personal, and it's just very, it's, well, you get a sense of it, but I have one space available this year.
And
So
so is this a combination of in person in Asheville, North Carolina with you? Is it online as well?
yes, what we do is we begin in July with an online conference call with all 6 teachers, and we begin phase one. Phase one is 4 months, and then we look at you have special readings and writings that you do over the course of the 4 months, and then we have for let's say it starts in July, and then in August, September, October, we have a call, a 2-hour call every month that we dive into those readings and writings, and we do movement and so forth. And then in November, we get together for our first week-long intensive, and that's in Austin at the Pilates Center of Austin.
Mm.
And that's an incredible coming together and learning and just diving hands on. It's just remarkable, incredible. And then we get more readings and writings for the next phase 2. And then that's, we skip December because it's such a busy month. And January, February, March are the next readings and writings and getting together twice for 2 hours each month. And then the next in-person week-long immersion is in Asheville in April. And then more once again, building on that. And all the readings and writings build on one another. It's all building on this, this incredible vision that we're studying. And then the final phase 3 is May, June, July, another incredible readings and writings. And then the final week-long immersion is in August of next year. So usually what's beautiful is teachers, you rent a house. We have certain houses that people have rented and all that. So it's like everybody stays together. And so it's a wonderful, people becoming lifelong friends and, just being together. And we have graduates from all over the world. And and then we have graduate circle calls every couple of months where, we get together with graduates and in-person immersions and all that. So it's pretty incredible. But I can send you information.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd love to. Would love to do that.
Yeah, what a wonderful, rich experience. And similarly, that's how this book club came about. So this is a real full circle moment to sort of close out on. Before we close, though, I want to make sure that you have our information. So I dropped my information in the chat if you want to follow along and continue to be part of the Pilates World Book Club. Claire Sparrow and I established the book club back in 2020, 2019, I think was when we were first conjuring it up, when we were in Lolita San Miguel's Pilates Master Mentor program together. Claire's a pole star educator and I'm a balanced body educator. And we both love learning all things Pilates and, inside and outside of the organizations that we are associated with. And we really love to bring together and cultivate community. And we dive into books that are not always just Pilates focused, like Wendy's book as well. So I'm not sure exactly what our next book will be, and I would love to hear from you all on what you're interested in learning about. I also would love to know if you're interested in meeting up after you've attained a copy of Wendy's book and then come back together and chat about it, if you would like. I would love that. So you can join us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. If you're not on Facebook, which I completely understand, then you might also just want to jump on our MailChimp email list. So I'll be sending out information there also. And then I also dropped my Pilates studio website on there, which has my email list that you can sign up for as well. It also just has my email and my phone number there. So like Wendy, I am a busy bee, and also I love to hear from you. I love to answer questions and stay in touch. So then I'll have Wendy, you can drop your information in there as well to the chat, and then I can also put that online when I post the video on YouTube.
Great, thank you. I would love to say if anybody's interested in knowing more about my Passing the Torch program, to please just email me, Wendy, at Wendy1811LeBlanc, LEBLANC @gmail.com. And I'd be glad to give you information about, just in general. I have what I call a letter of interest. It gives you lots of information about the course, and you can kind of see. May I share, Sarah, just an endorsement that I think is so relevant? This is, I got some just great, amazing endorsements from great mentors, Jaap van der Wal and John Sharkey. But Tom Myers wrote a really interesting endorsement that I think is so relevant. Said, Wendy LeBlanc-Arbuckle's new book is a wide-reaching and fun foray into what might be called movement hygiene, a healthy approach to movement. Instead of focusing, as many do endlessly, on what needs fixing or what you have to do to get better, this program meets you where you are and enhances what remains unbroken, the connection we have with all living matter before and after us. Wendy's broad physiological view of movement is up to date and grounded in embryology, So the portrait she presents is neither vigorously subjective nor dryly objective. She uses an impressive variety of sources to forge an inclusive language of somatic relationship. In these times when our movements through the natural world are stormed and stunted by urbanization and electronics, we hope other voices will heed her call for an inclusive language as the movement builds and matures the earlier efforts of physical culture throughout the ages, and the modern popular versions of yoga, Pilates, personal training, CrossFit, and hundreds of other new iterations of proper mechanical movement. These initial and honestly superficial paradigms are giving way a little too slowly to the deeper and more lasting, as well as more interesting relations to be had with our own inner space. In the Western world, F.M. Alexander introduced the use of the self over 100 years ago, and books like this live up to the promise of a better use of your most proximate tool and intimate friend, your body. Isn't that beautiful? Wow.
Yeah. And so I really encourage you all as well to read all of the forewords when you get Wendy's book. I know sometimes we get a new book and we just jump to the first chapter. Um, there's and Wendy's acknowledgments in there as well really set you up for understanding what you're diving into, in my opinion. And the richness of Wendy's lived experience and what she's bringing and what she's, you know, where she's coming from, right? We're not just individual cells, cellular creatures, right? We're influenced by everybody around us and everyone that we've learned from. And that's what I pass along to my instructor trainers and clients and whatnot too, is that more brains are better than one. There's so much to learn from everybody, and there's so much amazingness within each of us individually. And Wendy embodies that and embraces that um, and shares that with us, and so beginning the book with that, giving homage to her teachers and also hearing from her teachers, their experience with Wendy. It's just really beautiful to read that. And I'm just diving in here. So let's see. I am only on, I can tell where I stop because then there's no notes written in because I'm writing on every single page here. So I'm on page 22. So I'm early in here too, so don't be intimidated to jump in and start reading along with me. And then again, if you're interested in meeting up, I'll throw out, another Zoom registration for you all to join me and more conversation around the book. I can't say exactly when that will be. I need to look at my calendar a little further, but probably in a couple of months or so. My schedule is beautiful, as I like to say, and so I'm not a one book a week or one book a month type of person. And also in this setting, we tend to, go back into these books for many, many years to come. I know this is one of those books that, like Return to Life, I'll be continuing to return to it for the rest of my life. So. Yeah, and so I dropped some information in the chat, some more information. And Wendy, if you wouldn't mind dropping your information in there as well.
Sarah, I attempted to do that, but it's not opening up for me. So
Oh,
maybe
okay.
I
I
can
can,
I'll send you some information and then you
mhm.
can just let everybody
Yeah,
know.
I'll just email everyone who registered for the event because you had to register with an email. So whatever email you registered with, I'll send you those links along with Wendy's and the article, which I'm very excited to read as well. So thank you for that.
Excited to hear your feedback. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. As Ramana used to say, time is our most valuable asset. So I really
Right.
appreciate you, Wendy, so much for coming, and I appreciate everyone else too for dedicating your time to be with us. And I look forward to seeing you on the screen or in person sometime soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. It's beautiful to be with you.